Roll. Clerk Spencer, please call the roll.
Levin.
Here.
Park.
Here.
Conquest.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Brennan.
Here.
Sabatino.
Here.
Deuter.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Polumsky.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Paludo.
Here.
York.
Here.
14 present, 0 absent.
14 present, 0 absent. We have a quorum. On to agenda item 2, receipt of written communication from the public at this time. Is there anyone in our audience who has any written communication they wish to submit? If so, please raise your hand. Anyone in the audience with any written communication? Seeing none, we'll go on to public forum. This is an opportunity for anybody in our audience to address the council on any issue they so choose. When you're recognized, we ask that you make your way to the microphone over to my right, your left, just behind Chief Ruth there. Out of respect for work we have to get done this evening, out of respect for others who may want to speak, we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. If you go over 3 minutes, I will give you a gentle reminder and ask you to wrap up. When you approach the microphone, we ask that you identify yourself as we are recording these proceedings. Address is optional. Clerk Spencer, is there anybody who signed up for public forum this evening?
Yes, Mayor, we'll start with Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys.
Claude Pagach, 566 West Gladys. I'm trying to figure out just what city property is worth. One meeting, gentleman sues the city, got property, and he thinks he owns on 83, he loses it. Council says it's worth $5 a square foot. Couple of meetings later, Spring Road shows up. Guy says he'd like to buy the property. Didn't realize the city council had licensed real estate agents. Council comes up with $6,000. Well, wait a second. That's too much for the poor soul. He's been plowing it, and he's been weeding it. He's been parking his cars there, too. There's no room on the street. Council says, oh, we'll get it down to 1,000, 2,000. The reason we're doing it is he's got to pay property taxes. Well, he's got to pay property taxes if he buys it for 6,000. He's got to pay property tax if he buys it for 1,000. But when the city buys something, like that right away for that water main, for that gold-painted fire hydrant and a donut, over $350 a square foot. The land behind the Ace wasn't worth 10 cents. When Han went up, we said we couldn't get the money for it. But when we bought it, we paid the going rate. We didn't even take samples to see if the land was contaminated on the gas station or the cleaners that used to be there. So just what determines what this council is willing to give the public land away for? Because I don't think Edwards turned around and gave the land away for $1 at the old Elmhurst Hospital. City gave away his property that was worth approximately $350-some thousand. So I'd really appreciate if the council would just decide what land is worth. Okay? Because it seems like if you're a resident, it costs you a lot of money. If it's commercial property, it's just given away. And I understand about Old Elmhurst Hospital, I really do. You got houses, you got the taxes out of it. But you gave away the land.
Mr. Pagash, I'd ask you to wrap up your comments, please.
So up and decide what you're gonna do. Just don't give it away for $1 and decide that it's only worth 1,000.
John Jevitz, 658 Bryan.
John Jevitz, Character Counts, Elmhurst. I just want to congratulate and thank everyone that's here tonight. Mayor, great job. We're in the greatest city in the state of Illinois and probably the country. And I see the chiefs here. Chief Ruth, great job by you and all of the entire department. Chief Freeman, great job by you guys. And thank you so much, Alderman, for everything you do for our town. And I don't feel that everybody's always appreciated the way they should. So I'm just leaving because I believe that we're in the greatest quality, high-quality character town in the state. So this says Character Counts in Elmhurst, and I believe everyone here tonight is a great representative of Character Counts in Elmhurst. So I'm going to leave these for all you guys. God bless Elmhurst, and great job by all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all who signed in, Mayor.
Okay, that's it for folks who signed up for our public forum at this time. Is there anybody who did not have an opportunity to sign in on our sign-in sheet but wishes to address the council at this time? If so, please raise your hand so I can get a count. Anyone who wishes to address the council but did not sign up on our sign-in sheet? Seeing none, we're going to close public forum. On to announcements. Agenda item 4. Any announcements from the dais? Alderman York.
I'm so confused. You were looking over there. Thank you, Your Honor. This is a special time of year. Many graduations occurring. I know there was one at York yesterday, and I attended one at Marquette University yesterday. But I'd like to announce that this coming week is I believe, the 147th commencement ceremonies for Elmhurst College. There's 2 ceremonies, one for the graduate students, which will be on Thursday, May 24th at 6 p.m. These are all scheduled for outdoors. If Mother Nature doesn't cooperate, it will be in the Faginall Hall, which is where they play basketball. And then the undergraduate and ELSA ceremony is scheduled for Saturday, May 26th at 10 a.m. There will undoubtedly be many, probably thousands of people here for the celebration with their graduates and everything, so we want to be welcoming them to town. But it's a great day for Elmhurst College, getting ready to turn a bunch of people loose into the world with their new vocations and education and everything, so it's a very exciting time. I have a couple more announcements too. I'm not finished yet. On Friday, July 27th, is the 6th annual Superior Ambulance Elmhurst Cycling Classic. This is the first announcement from the dais on that, but it's going to be pretty much the same that it always is. It'll begin at 11 o'clock, and they'll race all the way through until 10 p.m. at night. We expect a full field. It's another 10-day series here in the Chicago area. We're a week later than we were last year to avoid some conflicts with some other sanctioned racing that's going on out on the West Coast, so we're expecting to draw even a bigger and better field this year. So we're very excited about that. We've already had meetings with Public Safety and Public Works, and plans are well underway for another exciting day of racing. We hope that we can skip all the lightning and windstorms and all that kind of stuff. We don't need that. And then finally, if you're looking for some nourishment on Wednesday, Meatheads downtown Elmhurst is sponsoring a fundraising event for the DuPage Cycling Foundation, which is the host organization that puts on the race here in town. We have 10 very hardworking board members that do this whole race on a volunteer basis, and this is a great opportunity to go have a hamburger, a salad, or whatever you desire to have there, but part of the proceeds will go back to the DuPage Cycling Foundation to support its mission in the community. Thank you.
Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to announce that Public Works and Buildings Committee will be meeting this Thursday, the 24th, instead of the regularly scheduled day of next Tuesday, the 29th. We are doing that because of quorum considerations, and we'll be looking specifically at the bid opening for the projects over at the Messiah Lutheran / Timothy Christian / Royal York projects. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Alderman Mulliner.
Just a reminder that Monday is Memorial Day, and it's the 100th anniversary of the parade. So we hope everybody's there. We hope a lot of people from the community come and show up as well.
Alderman Bram.
Yes, thank you. There's 3 upcoming meetings open to the public for the O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission. The first one is May 22nd. It's the technical committee meeting at 9 a.m. And you can find all this information, all the details on their website at oharenoise.org. The next one is May 29th, the executive committee meeting at 10:30 a.m. And then the last one I will speak to is the June 1st meeting, which is a Friday, the O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission meeting at 8 a.m. at Cafe Le Cave.
Okay, any other announcements? Seeing none, we'll go on to agenda item 5, consent agenda. At this time, is there any item on the consent agenda any alderman wishes to have removed, to vote no, or provide additional comment? Alderman Bram.
5.10, 5.18.
5.10, 5.18. Anything else? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda minus items 5.10 and 5.18. Motion to approve, Alderman Mulliner, second by Alderman York. Clerk Spencer.
Levin.
Aye.
Park.
Aye.
Conquest.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Sabatino.
Aye.
Goiter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Polumsky.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Paludo.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays, the motion carries. Consent agenda is approved minus items 5.10 and 5.18. On to agenda item 5.10. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask you to read the recommendation.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Buildings Committee that the staff work with city attorney to revise the city municipal codes as needed to address private property inflow and infiltration remediation. Signed by Jim Kennedy, Chairman, Marty Deuter, Vice Chairman, Norman Leader, and unsigned by Michael J. Bram.
Okay, to put this before council, I'll ask for a motion to approve the report and recommendation as read. Motion by Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Deuter. Alderman Kennedy, your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the next step in the process around, we've got some feedback going on here. I don't know where that's coming from, but we'll keep going.
Keep going, we're going to try to work on it.
Next step in the process around what occurred when we had the consent decree put upon us by the Illinois EPA back now probably 7-8 years ago as it related to sanitary sewer system overflows. The beginning of that process was what started from the Illinois EPA. That ultimately required us to do the smoke testing throughout the basins in southwest Elmhurst. And the next step to that is taking action upon those areas that were found to be below the requirements in that area. So this action, this report is around 2 things. First of all, changing the ordinances, requiring that what was grandfathered before as being allowed is no longer going to be allowed. And then the financial approach as to how we're going to deal with those non-compliant homes. And so the basic idea is we're kind of front-end loading it, trying to get people to adopt change very soon. So we're taking an approach whereby we've put estimates for each of the types of improvements as listed in the reports. We're doing it at 100% of those rates for the first 6 months, and then that'll taper down to the point where if residents haven't taken the appropriate steps to address the problems, then they would ultimately be subject to fines and then also having to obviously take care of that issue. So we really want to get people moving on this and take this very seriously so that ultimately when it gets to the end of 2021, we can go back to the Illinois EPA, they can see all the work we've done, they can close the case and put this issue finally to bed. Thank you.
Okay. Comments? Alderman Bram.
Thank you. I will start off with saying that I wrote up some amendments or modifications that everybody should have a copy in front of them on the dais. I contemplated doing a minority report, but due to personal family issues last week, I was not able to do so at time of committee. But I want to walk through the original report, and then I will speak to what I believe is an appropriate amendment. The report on page 1, as Alderman Kennedy stated, it has some good background in regards to the consent order and how we got where we are today. The second to last paragraph makes a statement of 350 compliance issues to be addressed prior to 12/31/2021 in order to meet the compliance order commitments made by the city. I believe that this is not exactly an accurate statement. The consent order tells us that we need to do everything we can to have compliance. Now, we the city, don't know exactly what the IEPA expects and what that means by compliance. We've already built a $12 million Southwest wet weather facility that handles some of the sanitary overflow in this area, hopefully most, if not all. We've done smoke testing and other testing in this area to see what are our other problems. And some of the problems are on the private side. Currently, today, we have an ordinance that actually does provide some incentive for some of these items that is listed in the original report or the recommendation. Some of the items that aren't listed or does not provide an incentive today, the reason being is that these are issues that are people who are non-compliant, homes that are non-compliant. Some might even use the terminology, but in violation. I don't see on why, and that's where I differ in the original report to my recommendation for amendments, on why we would incentivize even a penny, but my amendment or proposed amendment actually states that I'm willing to compromise. But why would we give 100% incentive for people who are in violation or non-compliant? Why would public funds help private entities, private homeowners who are in non-compliant? If they know it or not, they're still non-compliant. That's what our ordinances are there for. Now, the other segment, being those that have been grandfathered in, is a different story. That's hard to say, okay, we're going to pull out the rug from under you and say, we're knocking on your door and you need to get this done tomorrow. I understand that. I think, and there is today an incentive for those homeowners, not to the degree that the recommendation is referring to, but there is an incentive today. And that hasn't gotten us really far. As we could see, as the report states, there's 350 still out there today. So I'm not sure on why, one, we would incentivize to 100%. And even though the table breaks it out saying 100% indirectly, and what I mean by that is, if you look at the first line item, combination sumps with diverters, the typical current cost range provided by the city is $500 to $3,500. In the first year until the end of this year, 2018, the city is proposing, or this recommendation is proposing, to cover up to $3,500. The following year, the end of 2019, it's $1,750. It doesn't say that that's up to 50% though. So if someone finds that they can do the work or have the work done for $1,750, we're still reimbursing for 100% or maybe 75%. It may want to say or imply or infer that that's 50%, but nowhere in here it says that we're limiting it to 50% of the total cost. I have an issue with that. At the very least, this report should be modified to say this amount or up to 50% of the total cost. Because through all these years, depending on how great the issue is, they can have 100% reimbursement. And again, so I will talk about the difference between compliance and grandfathered. Grandfathered is tough to do. My amendment, or my proposal, that's before you on the dais, breaks it out into two tables. The first table being those that were grandfathered in, and I added that terminology, grandfathered violations. I also added that for any time that a new bathroom is added or remodeled. So my belief is that, sure, we should incentivize more than $200 to get them in compliance, since they were grandfathered in many years ago, in some cases decades ago. But we shouldn't ever incentivize with public funds up to 100%. So I stated up to the end of this year, 50%, up to the end of 2020 being 875, which is 25%, and then back to the original amount. And then the same thing with the others, up to 50% and up to 25% of what the city deems that the total cost may be. And then in regards to the non-compliant violations, I was a little bit tougher on this, saying that it should be up to 25% until the end of 2020, and then 2021, we go back to what's already documented in our ordinances today. So I have concern in regards to the total cost. I have concern in regards to grandfathered versus non-compliant. And then the last issue I want to bring up is, how is this even legal? We're allocating funds for a subsection of the city of Elmhurst, and that's it. In the report itself, it says that everybody else, you have to pay your full share. How are we separating one area of the city? And I'm sure the rebuttal will be, well, this is the consent order, but it's public monies. You shouldn't allocate public monies for a segment of the city. It should be allowed for everybody in the city. Lastly, I hate when it all of a sudden skips my mind. So that's my summary. I think that I think the report is a little bit on the dramatic side from the standpoint of, we can go to the IEPA and say we've done everything with just using what we have in our ordinance today. I'm not suggesting or recommending that. I think we should try to further get compliance. We could utilize the method of getting compliance of saying, hey, you're in violation. You need to correct it. Here's your timeline. That's what's in our ordinance today. But I want to strike a middle ground, and I think some incentive is good, but 100% is not acceptable to me.
Alderman Leader.
Make no mistake, this will be a far-reaching program, eventually impacting thousands of our fellow citizens. I am concerned that in our enthusiasm, that we may proceed too far beyond the letter of the law as dictated by the IEPA, because I believe the average citizen, not being a civil engineer, probably does not know the difference between I and the 17 necessary and sufficient causes of the First World War. This state of Illinois mandated program is going to come as a shock to thousands of taxpayers. I am concerned that a lot of innocent taxpayers are going to be swept up in a net not of their own making. And the costs will fall relatively heaviest on seniors, on fixed incomes struggling to keep up. I believe that if government is to mean anything, it must be human and caring. Our main concern should be to protect the most vulnerable among us, to always try to help people and not hurt them. Sure, a few guilty may benefit, but the sins of others and their mistakes and failures never did excite in me that moral indignation which exists in the breast of some. To that end, I want a program that is driven by humane incentives. I don't want this program to rely on fines, coercion, overzealous inspectors, and citizens spying on their neighbors. I want a program driven by concern for justice, not cold legality. And what is more, no one really believes that all laws should be enforced all the time. I urge common sense, that most uncommon of the senses, in the implementation of this program. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Deuter.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to back up a little bit to put this report in context as it relates to flooding in Elmhurst. When we talk about flooding, we talk about overland flooding, and that's our detention projects. We also have flooding that occurs because our sanitary sewer system, sanitary system, becomes overloaded. So the improvements that we're talking about here are going to help with that. This is an important part of addressing flooding in Elmhurst. The 350 homes that will be able to access these increased reimbursements for the work that has to be done, it's all because of the consent order. So we laid out our plan to meet the obligations of the consent order, and addressing these 350 homes is one of those commitments. We also committed to a bunch of infrastructure improvements that are city-owned, and those are easier, right? We're doing manhole covers, we're lining a lot of the pipes that are part of the sanitary sewer system. Those are things we can control. We are just as obligated to fix these private property issues, but it's a lot more complicated because we don't control that. So I think this was an issue that we discussed, I think it was at least 6 meetings in committee. It was something that, we went around a lot of different ways to address it, and for a bunch of different reasons, some of which you've already heard. This is what the majority of the committee thinks makes the most sense. This is what staff brought to us originally as their recommendation because they feel the weight of needing to meet the obligations of our consent order. We had multiple discussions about can we make this work with a lower reimbursement level? And again, for a number of different reasons, the majority of the committee came back up to these amounts. The I&I issues are not limited to this part of Elmhurst. Also part of this report are triggers that in every area of Elmhurst, if you are doing certain things like adding a bathroom, adding an addition, you will be required to come into compliance. So we are, with this report, we are addressing the issue citywide and working toward improvement as people are doing other improvements to their home. But I do think that for the 350 violations that we're required to address, to knock on those folks' doors or send out a letter and say, here's something that you're required to fix, and here's the cost of what it's, the cost to you to fix it, I don't think is realistic that we would get the compliance that we need in order to be, to meet our consent order and be released from that ultimately. We had, I think staff has been working very closely with the city attorneys to meet and make progress and report on the progress of the consent order. The attorney sat in our meeting and said this is absolutely legal. So at least our attorney's perspective is that it is perfectly legal. I think that's it. Those are just a few points I wanted to add and make sure that folks know what we're talking about with this report. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Alderman Levin.
Thank you. I just have a question for the committee. Is the proposed reimbursement, I'm trying to see, is it intended to be 50% or 100% 50%, or are these the raw dollar amounts? So if a given home's cost is $1,500, up till 2018, it looks like they get the $1,500, and then I'm wondering, like, in between December 31, 2018 and December 31, 2019, if they waited till then, would they get 1,500 or 750?
Alderman Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. They would get the 50%. They would get, in your example, they would get the 750. When staff went out and looked at this, they had each of these projects, they went out to multiple contractors to get a viewpoint of what they might cost, and that's the range that you're seeing. But after this first 6 months, or if you want to call it year 2, it would be 50% of that cost, with the maximum being, I think in your example, 1,500. So if their cost was 3,000, we would go up to 1,500. If their cost was only 1,500, we reimburse at 750.
All right, follow up? It's to you, Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. So I didn't see that in the report. Will that be in the ordinance then? Or did I miss it?
It's in the report in the table where it says in the first row, up to 50%, up to 25%, but I see Don nodding his head. We can further clarify that.
That's my report.
Okay, well, it doesn't
Okay.
say it's your report.
No, hold on.
He means it's
It
in,
will be clarified in the ordinance.
all right, good. I just want to make sure I understand what we're looking at. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, let me make sure I understand that. To further that, just so the council understands the motion before them. If I look on page 2, at the very top, combination sump pumps with diverter. Everyone with me on that? Jim, you see that?
You?
Typical cost, $500 to $3,500. So up until the end of this year, if a homeowner has a cost that's $3,500, they get paid 100%. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. For the span of time between the end of 18 through the end of 19, the reimbursement is reduced, but also the amount it covers goes down to 50%. Is that right?
That is correct.
So a $1,000 repair, they'd only get $500 back.
That's correct.
So the percentage covered is reduced by half, and the total amount is reduced as well. And then in the third column, where it's for the end of 19 through the end of 20, 875 is available. Am I to assume or infer that's only 25%? So if it's a $1,000 repair, they get 250 back.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's the intention of the report.
Yes.
Okay. What's the trigger, if you could explain to me, trigger and after for 1/1/2021?
So at that point, the standard of the numbers you see there in case of combination sump pumps, it would be $500 would be the maximum that we would reimburse for that type of work, not only in Southwest Elmhurst, but anywhere in the,
And that's just a flat fee, a
Correct.
flat amount? Could be a $10,000 repair, it could be a $600 repair. It's going to be $500 in this first row.
yes.
Okay. All right.
Can I ask one more follow-up, Mayor?
Alderman Levin.
Thank you. So if I'm reading this correctly, we're incentivizing people to get the work done sooner. So we're going to pay more if you get done sooner. And then my question is, if you get to the end, which I thought was 2020, then we start enforcing the ordinance because you're in violation if you haven't fixed it. And then I'm thinking, if we're going to give them an ordinance violation, why are we giving them $500? That sort of pay the ticket? I mean, you know. Just asking.
Okay. These are gonna be for anybody that wants to make these changes. If they get to that point and they haven't dealt with it, they're still gonna have to fix it, right? So, but that's where kind of the legality piece came into the discussion is, you know, we're incentivizing people to do this in the front end, but in the end, we're gonna have these programs for people to address it, but they're gonna have to.
Even people outside this area.
Exactly right.
I got it. Thank you.
Alderman Deuter.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of comments that the triggers column, those are the existing reimbursement rates. So right now, those are available for anybody who wanted to do this work. So we're leaving those, we're not taking those away. Those will exist and will be in effect throughout the city, and it's, those would apply to those 350 homes if they don't address it prior to the end of 2020. The other, just comment about, all of our conversations, we talked about front-loading the reimbursement and then going down to 50% and then down to 25% after that. Those were the discussions at committee. I have a feeling there might have been an earlier version of this report that discussed that directly, and we made a bunch of different revisions. I have a feeling one of the things that got pulled out as we tried to make this more concise might have been addressing that, the intent is to go down to 50% and then down from there. So I think that was something that got pulled out and probably was an oversight to not leave it in this version, but it was clear in our discussions.
Alderman Dunn.
So just to get a complete understanding of which population of Elmhurst this impacts, there's about 15,000 homes in the city or units of residents. The report states 5,000 and that are in compliance and 350 that are not. I assume that those are homes in the southern part of Elmhurst. That's the focus area for a lot of this work. So that's my first question, just to clarify that. And the statement was made that the last column for the triggers is applicable to any home in Elmhurst. Are the other columns applicable to those other homes as well?
Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Answer to your first question, yes, this is focused in southwest Elmhurst, 3 of the 8 basins that we have that, and where the consent decree was focused upon. So that answers your first question. The second one related to the triggers, yes, the triggers would be applicable to all residents regardless of their location in the city, but this proposed reimbursement at 100% and so on, 100%, 50, and 25, is specific to these 3 basins and the 350 homes that were found to be non-compliant as part of the smoke testing. And just to kind of follow up on that side, the majority of the people, I would assume, even to this day, do not know that they are non-compliant, because when we did the smoke testing, we simply gathered information. The crews that did it from RJN did not pass judgment, did not give information to the people as to whether they passed or whether they failed. They simply collected the information, and knowing that we would be ultimately going back. And we did that for a very specific reason, so that it didn't feel as if the smoke testing was thought to be punitive at the time, and that people would think that, well, my neighbor had the smoke test and they were told to be non-compliant, so I'm just going to lock the door and not let them in. So we need to go back to these 350 residents, because I would say, to use Alderman Leader's civil engineer comment, most of them don't know they're non-compliant today and probably never knew before, will have never known before this letter came to them. So they're gonna have to deal with this, and the reason we're doing this front-end loading is to get this information in front of people and get them moving, because our goal is ultimately to dry out the system, because we know, and city staff and public works would tell you, you just have to look at the flow rates through the sewage treatment plant after a heavy rain, and you know that there's water coming in from the system that's ultimately falling from the sky, leaching in and getting over to there. That's not part of the normal flow, because if it really shouldn't matter whether it's raining or not how much goes through the treatment plant, because they're divided systems. But we know, based on what RGN has told us and what we know empirically, that's just not the case, and that's why this is so important to get this taken care of, show action, show the IEPA that we're serious to take action. And yeah, we could roll the dice and just go to the IEPA today and say, yeah, we did our best. But there's a big chance they would go, no, you didn't. And not only do you have to keep going, we're gonna make you do more because you didn't really try that hard. So that's why we put so much effort around this. Thank you.
Follow-on question?
Alderman Dunn.
So in terms of compliance, are there certain degrees of compliance, or is it just binary? You are compliant or you're not compliant. Is there low levels of non-compliance that might sneak under the radar in terms of the smoke testing or whatever sensing that was, evaluation that was done? Because I'm quite frankly surprised that it's only 350 homes out of, you know, the 5,000 plus. So we got, you know, less than 10% of the homes are viewed to be in violation.
Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is akin to being kind of pregnant. You either are or you aren't, non-compliant or compliant, and there's 350 that are non-compliant and need to be addressed.
Any other comments?
I just have one more.
Alderman Dunn. The chair recognizes Alderman Dunn.
One scenario that maybe wasn't discussed or thought through is in those 350 homes, if they sell their home and somebody else moves in, is the new homeowner saddled with this, or is it a requirement when the home is sold to get compliant? I didn't really see that in the report.
Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it would be a requirement of these homeowners to address these problems before transferal. And so there's another effort that will have to be taken beyond this about how home transfers take into account these requirements going forward.
Alderman Braham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, in regards to that, Alderman Dunn, it was briefly discussed in committee, and it was decided to not muddy the waters anymore, that further discussion is needed for that issue when it talks about home sales. In regards to Alderman Levin's comments on page 2, the table, I would agree. I think the intent of the committee was not to say trigger and after 1/1/2021, because essentially you are kind of defeating the purpose. We're paying for the fine that we would be levying in the beginning of 2021. I believe that column, and this is my belief out of the 4 of the committee, but it was meant for just to represent the triggers that are known, or what we reimburse today, and tie those to the triggers that are stated above that table in line item or bullet item number 1A through E. So I believe that's the intent, not to reimburse the fines that we would levy for anybody who's non-compliant. In regards to Alderman Leader's comments previously, I think Alderman Deuter also reiterated what I stated. I don't know how we're punitive when we're allocating dollars for only a section of Elmhurst residents. So you're saying we shouldn't be punitive on one section, but 3/4 of the community we are, because we're not giving these same incentives through 3/4 of the city of Elmhurst. So we're punitive for the majority, but not the minority of Elmhurst residents. So I'm a little bit confused on how we're being punitive when we're giving dollars only to a subsection. I would say we're punitive to majority of Elmhurst residents. At this time, I would like, and Mr. Mayor, this is difficult because that's why I typed something up, so many changes to be made, separating out the table, but I'm gonna make an attempt to make a motion to amend, and that's why I provided it all before you on the dais. Essentially, a quick summary of the amendment would be to do 2 things. Separate grandfathered versus non-compliant, and that's why there's 2 tables in my report. 2, stipulate up to what I delineated as, instead of 100%, up to 50% and 25%, depending on the 2 tables. And I think those are the only 2 changes that I have highlighted.
So, Alderman Brand, before you move forward with your proposal, I read both reports, and it looks to me like the only changes are the last sentence of what I'll say section 2 on page 2, where you make the distinction of the grandfather violations. And then you split that chart and you name the next chart reimbursements for non-compliant violations. I don't see any other changes in the rest of the report. I just see it in the two charts. You broke them up in that one sentence. Am I correct in that?
I added in on page 2, 1B remodeled,
1B, remodeled.
but the tables are significantly different.
Oh, I know they're different.
Okay,
I know they're different. I'm just saying, I'm just comparing the two reports.
yes,
So remodeled, the last sentence, which clarifies the grandfather violations of the chart below.
Correct.
And you kind of split that chart in half, and you're labeling the second chart reimbursement for non-compliant violations.
correct.
Okay, so you want to make a motion to amend the current report to reflect the changes, which would be adding the word remodeled under 1B, altering the last sentence of section 2, clarifying grandfather violations, which corresponds to what I'll call the shortened chart below it,
Correct.
and then taking the remainder of the chart, labeling it reimbursements for non-compliant violations, and amending it with that chart below there, and the corresponding dollar amounts within.
Very good
Did you
summary.
change any of the dollar amounts?
Dollar amounts have changed and the number of columns have changed, yes.
Okay. So that's your motion to amend, correct?
Correct.
All right. Do I have a second? I do not see a second. The motion fails for by not achieving a second. Back to the original motion before us. Any additional comments? I am going to, as chairman, ask the motioner and the second to amend, to amend their columns for 19 and 20 to add up to 50%, up to 25%. Are you okay with that? So I'm asking for a motion to amend the report and add up to 50% in the 19 column and up to 25% in the 20 column. And then so I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Alderman Toledo.
If we're going to do that, shouldn't we do it to the one that's up to 100% so that they don't get 3,500 if it only costs 2,000, just for consistency's sake?
Fair enough.
Okay. Withdrawn and re-added, just like that, 100%, 50, 25. Additional conversation. Clerk Spencer, call the roll on the motion to amend, adding.
Do we need a motion?
We do. They did it.
Oh, they did.
And that was to do the 100%.
Yeah, they withdrew their other amendment. They nodded. They're going back to their amendment.
Nodding, all right.
So we have an amendment from Alderman Kennedy and Alderman Deuter to add 100% up to 50, up to 25.
Okay, and that's an
A
amendment.
motion and a second.
And who
No
was
further conversation.
those two?
Alderman Kennedy and
Okay.
Alderman Deuter.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Clerk Spencer, please call the vote.
Levin,
I'm nodding. Aye.
You're not
Park.
helping.
Park,
Aye.
Conquest,
math.
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Mulliner,
Aye.
Brennan,
Aye.
Sabatino,
Aye.
Deuter,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Leader,
Aye.
Palumski,
Aye.
Graham,
No.
Paludo,
Aye.
York.
Aye.
13 ayes, 1 nays.
13 ayes, 1 nay. Motion to amend carries. Now to the amended report. Any additional conversation? Clerk Spencer.
Okay. Levin,
Aye.
Park,
Aye.
Conquest,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Mulliner,
Aye.
Brennan,
Aye.
Sabatino,
Aye.
Deuter,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Leader,
Aye.
Palumski,
Aye.
Graham,
No.
Paludo,
Aye.
York.
Aye.
13 ayes, 1 nays.
13 ayes, 1 nay. Motion carries. Agenda item 1.10 as amended is approved. On to agenda item, 5.10 is approved. On to agenda item 5.18. This is an ordinance. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask you to read the ordinance.
Yeah, it's right here. Okay. An ordinance vacating a certain alley right-of-way immediately east and adjoining 463 through 465 Spring Road.
Okay, to put this before council, I'll ask for a motion to approve the ordinance as read. Motion by Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Deuter. Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe Alderman Bram pulled this, so I will defer to his comments.
Alderman Bram.
Nothing really more to add from 2 weeks ago. I think we're selling this for too cheap, and I will leave it at that.
Okay. Any additional comments? Clerk Spencer.
Levin.
Aye.
Park.
Aye.
Conquest.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Sabatino.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
Graham.
No?
Toledo.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
13 ayes, 1 nays.
13 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. Agenda item 5.18 is approved.
Thank you.
On to 6, reports and recommendations. Mayor Morley, that's me. Couple. I have third one. What was my third one? Oh, yeah. There's 13. Do you have 513? 1 second, folks. Oh, there it is. Okay. No, I wanted 14. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. I run a little behind here. Okay, announcements. Outstanding Senior Citizen Service Award nominations. Do you know an outstanding senior citizen who volunteers for your organization? The Elmhurst Senior Citizens Commission is seeking nominations for the Outstanding Senior Citizen Service Award. Nominees must be Elmhurst residents living within the city of Elmhurst boundaries. The award is focused on an individual achievement or organizations and the service they provide. You can read all the details online. Service must have occurred August 15th, 2017 through August 10th, 2018, and nominations will be taken until the date that is announced on the website. I don't have a date here, but I promise to have it next meeting. Okay. Alderman Mullen already mentioned, I think, 100th Annual Elmhurst Memorial Day Parade starts at 9:30 next Monday. I will see all the aldermen there no later than 9:15, right out here in front of City Hall. And I encourage all of you to stick around for the Memorial Day celebration afterwards. The last thing I wanted to mention, and I pulled the wrong item, but I'll do it by memory anyway, is on our consent agenda, agenda item 5.14, Metra Intergovernmental Funding Agreement. It was a report out of finance. It seems I have good news on this project about every 2 months. Council's aware, we have in the works an $18 million remodel planned for the City of Elmhurst Metro Station. $18 million is a lot of money, but through a lot of hard work and applying for various grants, this one most recently that we approved, I'm happy to say that the Elmhurst staff has gone out and acquired $16.4 million in grants to help pay for that. And that just can't be emphasized enough. It's something that needs to happen, and the fact that we were able to locate government programs to pay for close to 90% at this point is a good thing. So I wanted to highlight that. And that's it for my report. City Manager Grabowski.
Thank you. Just a few items. It was mentioned that Memorial Day is next Monday. That means our meetings will be delayed 1 day, so those will be on Tuesday. Also, refuse is delayed 1 day next week as well. Over the last 24 hours, we've had, it's been estimated at the Salt Creek rain gauge, 1.77 inches of rain over the last 24 hours. And I'm pleased to say that everything is functioning as it should in town. So we're getting a thumbs up from someone in the audience on that to verify it, so that's great. Thanks to the public works crews that have been out clearing grates. That's been our biggest complaint, is that covered with leaves and branches and whatnot, so they've been very busy. And then last, I want to thank Dave Oberg and all the museum staff for a very successful museum day yesterday. It was in partnership with 2 others, but I know that a lot of people put in time for that, and so I want to say thank you.
That it?
That's it.
A little birdie tells me that August 10th of this year is the deadline for your Senior Citizen Service Award. Any other reports? On to 7, ordinances. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask you to read 7.1.
An ordinance approving and authorizing the execution of a non-exclusive license agreement by and between the Elmhurst Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the City of Elmhurst, DuPage, and Cook Counties, Illinois.
Okay, before I put this before us, you may have noted that this was actually, this ordinance follows up a report that was 5.13 in our consent agenda, and our code does not allow for an ordinance resulting from the recommendation of a committee report shall not, passage of an ordinance shall not be sooner than the first meeting after the council, unless we suspend our rules. This is for the Memorial Day Parade. So I think it's appropriate to suspend our rules and pass this ordinance. I will entertain a motion to suspend our rules on this matter. Motion by Alderman Mulliner, second by Alderman Brennan. We'll do this by voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion to suspend the rules for agenda item 7.1 is approved. On to agenda item 7.1. Clerk Spencer just read the ordinance. I will entertain a motion to approve the ordinance as read. Motion by Alderman Levin, second by Alderman Palumsky. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry. That was so easy. I'll have to do a roll call vote. Clerk Spencer.
Okay. Levin.
Aye.
Park.
Aye.
Conquist.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Sabatino.
Aye.
Reuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Palumsky.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Saludo.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. Agenda item 7.1 is approved. On to 7.2, an ordinance. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask you to read the ordinance.
An ordinance waiving bid for the Sailor and Madison Storm Sewer Emergency Repair Project and authorizing the execution of a contract between Girardi Sewer and Water Company and the City of Elmhurst.
Put this before council. I'll ask for a motion to approve the ordinance as read. Motion by Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Deuter. Alderman Kennedy.
Just to highlight, we are asking to suspend the rules to approve the report and the ordinance.
Oh, is this in the same one?
Yeah.
No, this is different.
No, but was it on the, it wasn't in the report either?
It was.
Oh, it was. Sorry.
5.6.
Thanks for the clarification, Alderman Kennedy. Go ahead.
That's that.
That's that. Okay, any additional comments? Clerk Spencer.
Levin.
Aye.
Park.
Aye.
Conquist.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner. Brennan.
Aye.
Sabatino.
Excuse me, aye.
Reuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Palumsky.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Saludo.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. Agenda item 7.2 is approved. On to resolutions. Agenda item 8. 8.1 is a resolution. Clerk Spencer, please read the resolution.
A resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement by and between J. Congdon Sewer Services, Inc., and the City of Elmhurst, and authorizing the issuance of a notice of award for the 2018 water main improvements project. And then there's C.
Put this before council. I'll ask for a motion to approve the resolution as read. Motion by Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Deuter. Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Here again, we're asked in the report to suspend the rules to be able to get going on this sooner. Thank you.
Okay. Additional comments? Clerk Spencer.
Levin.
Aye.
Park.
Aye.
Conquist.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Brennan.
Aye.
Sabatino.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Palumsky.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Saludo.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. Agenda item 8.1 is approved. Item 9, other business. Any other business? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Alderman Honquest, second by Alderman York. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.